How's it going, YouTube? This is OP Poker James here. Before we get started today, I'm really excited to announce that we have finally made a low stakes spin and go course over on our website. If you're interested in learning how to crush the low stakes spin and goes, by low stakes I mean $25 and under, either go to the description below and click on the links there, or come over to our website op.poker.contact, click on OP Premium and you'll find it there. This course is a complete guide to becoming a winning player on the low stakes spin and goes, with a full set of easy to use pre-flop charts and strategy videos on how to play each position post-flop. Given that the video course is designed for low stake games, we have decided to keep the price point low enough that those who play these limits can afford the content. We thought $49.99 was a fair amount for all involved. If you aren't interested in purchasing the course, don't worry, we will still be doing plenty of free content on our YouTube as well as on Twitch. Right, now that we've got that out of the way, let's have a look at the new spin and go lobby. So if you notice, the stakes have changed since last time we played here. We now have $25 spins, we have $10 spins. The $5 spins are no longer the $1 million jackpot, which I believe hit just before it got taken away. And there are some changes with the multipliers as well. So the 2x's have a faster speed, and the higher multipliers, so 10x and higher, have longer blind speeds. So that changes things up a little bit. I don't think it changes our strategy too much, but it does change how we try and figure out our long-term win rates. Now Chippy V isn't quite as accurate as it once was in determining how much we're going to win, but we can talk about that later or some other time. For now, I'm just wanting to play the games and see how it goes from here. If you notice as well, we got the play now and play flash button. I don't think there's ever going to be a time that I would prefer to play flash over regular spins. If there was a stake that I would want to do that, or like to play flash rather than regulars, it's probably in the $2 to $5 region. I think that's the place where maybe you could find a way to get it better hourly on those games and just mass table them compared to these regular ones. However, at the $25 limit, I think it's just better to play regulars. So that's what we're going to do. I'm just going to fire up one table. All right, so we do get the 2x multiplier, which is $50. And that has changed things up because now instead of having the 3-minute blinds, we now got the 2-minute blinds. So theoretically, it should mean that our Chippy V will go down, which isn't great. But also, you got to look at it from a long-term perspective. When you get recreational players playing these games, if the smaller buy-in multipliers that they're not really interested in are now shorter, and the ones with the bigger multipliers, they get to play for longer, it's more likely they're going to want to stick around and play more games. So there's some bad and there's some good. I've yet to decide if this has been a good change or a bad change. I know a lot of people have just immediately decided it's a bad one. I'm reserving judgment for now. We'll see how the game state changes over the next few months, and then I will say how I feel about it. The King 8 hand, we just want to check down. We got some showdown value, and by the end of it, I don't think we want to turn a hand into a bluff. It's just got enough showdown value. Our opponent had Queen 8, so we had slightly better kicker. Take it down. If you notice, I'm using the Aurora background now. Reason I'm doing this is mainly it was forced upon my client. I know some of you guys don't have it, but I think eventually we're all going to have to switch to this Aurora style. Luckily, Hold'em Manager now works well with it, and I'm using Stars Caption at the moment to work with it. I'm hoping that Stars Helper will help us out in the future. If they don't, then we'll show you guys how to get Stars Caption on your computer as well. King 10, I call against the 2.5x bet. We flopped the middle pair. Top kicker, so we're not going anywhere. Do I want to raise? I don't think so. I think I'm quite happy to just call. If I'm raising, it would be more for like equity denial rather than for value. So I don't want to overcomplicate things. I'm just going to call the flop. Turn is not good at all, but I still think we're a little bit too strong to be folding, so we're going to call again. Fingers crossed they don't bet the river. Fingers crossed, they do. I think enough hands bricked by the river for me to call here. It's pretty annoying, but I think we're going to be right more than the 1 in 4 times required. So they bet half pot. Unfortunately, he hit straight on us. What can he do? It's one of those spots where I think we're right less than 50% of the time, don't get me wrong. But when they only bet half the pot, we only need to be right 1 in 4 times to make more chips than if we folded. Something that's really important for you guys to remember is that you don't need to be right half the time. You need to be right 1 in 4. Anyway, we shoved ace 2 and got called by ace king. We just managed to outcooler our opponent, so I'm happy with that. Now we're right back in the game again. So our opponent here, I think they are a reg. I recognize the name, but I'm gonna mark them as possible reg, and then Fresti I don't recognize yet. So on these $25 games so far, I've played, I don't know, 300 of them. Not enough sample to really look at win rate at all. I haven't opened up the graph in any regard yet. I think at 500 games, I'll start adding a very, very basic HUD. For now, though, I'm just getting the hand histories up. Once we've got 500 games, I'm going to start putting a few stats there, namely number of hands being the most important one, just so I know who the regulars are at the times of day that I play. Do I want to call down here again, or do I want to raise in position? I think I'm going to call it rather than raise here. Raising is completely fine, but I think I prefer to do that with worse 2 pairs. I think a lot of rivers I can still call if bad cards come out with queen 5. So that's why I'm playing it like that. There we go. We let our opponent hit a king. So we got the stack. Otherwise we wouldn't have. So that's nice. Jack 5 suited, we're going to shove. Against some people who call, if I have the label calls with crap, I would start limping or raising it instead. It's a very, very useful label to have. Guys, if you don't have these types of players, note it down. If they're pushing all in with garbage or they're calling with garbage, it's very useful to know. Especially on these 2x multipliers, you're going to see people not caring about the game and just going all in until they get to play a new one. So I guess in that sense, having it a little bit more turbo hypery is a good thing. With 2-minute blinds rather than 3. I personally don't think Chippy V would change as much as people envision it to, but we'll see. I'm reserving judgment, as I said earlier. Flop, I've got to call as I've got a pair. This turn card makes me feel like that maybe we're behind, but at the same time, I'm not going to try and bluff and get a 7 off, I don't think. This is a very thin line. I wouldn't say it would be a terrible play to turn your hand into a bluff here, I think. Once I face a bet, I'm folding. There isn't much that we beat anymore, so I just let it go. When they lead out on the flop. Basically, if I do decide to start betting the turn with my Jack 5, it's for a bluff, and the aim of the game there would be to get a 6 or a 7 to fold by the river. I don't think we want to try and get top pair to fold. Alright, so it's 6 big blinds. We're very close to playing push or fold. I've been min-raised here. If I know more about my opponent, I would be calling some hands close to this. This is very, very borderline. I wouldn't be upset if you did want it to call that, but I prefer to err on the side of caution when I see these min raises at this stack depth. I shove 9-8 suited, which is standard, and get called by ace queen, also standard. Now we got a game on our hands. At 10 big blinds, king 7 can be one of those hands that you don't ISO shove. It's one of the very few types of king highs that I would see a flop with. King 7, king 8. Those are the hands specifically. At this stack depth, a lot of the regulars on these lower stake games, so the $25, check fold far too often in limped pots at this kind of stack depth. So I see bet a lot of hands. This turn card is pretty good for my range. My opponent shouldn't have too many kings, so I'm going to continue. And then on the river, do we want to stack off? Yeah, I think so. I think we're just going to be able to get a 9 to fold enough of the time. Queen won't fold, I don't think. I don't think a queen would fold, but a 9 would. Unless, of course, we are playing a recreational player. That would mean it would be even better of a free barrel spot there. 10-6 we're going to jam. I think they're a reg though. Okay, so you wouldn't really see this on higher stake games, min raising at this kind of stack depth. I'm going to see a flop with the 9-6. If I hit any kind of equity, you probably got to lose my stack, or well, get the stack in rather than lose it. I've missed completely, so now I'll just fold. (9-4) off. I'm going to attempt to limp here. I'm starting to get the feeling that maybe I'm not playing against the reg. Take off the label. Sometimes you get things wrong. And now I'm just going to bet once. If I do get called there, I am very, very confused. Normally, I can't put my opponent on a hand. Maybe queen high, maybe a gut shot to a straight. 8-4, I think is a little bit too wide to be limping. If I know my opponent doesn't ISO, so raise my limp at all, then I would be limping nearly any 2 cards. Maybe I wouldn't limp 3-2 off, 7-2 off, but anything else I would. All right, so it does seem to be min raising quite a lot. I will start jamming all in a bunch of hands. Fingers crossed he would fold some of the time, which would make my jam even better. We lost the flip, not ideal, but we're still in it. We got 200 chips and a good hand. Get a fold at the ideal time. 10-6 versus king 2, gonna need to run good. Nice. All right, as you can see, the blinds have really got up a lot faster than they normally do. Jack 2, unfortunately, we would have got fold. 10-2 against this opponent, given that he folded at 2 big blinds. I think he might be a little bit too tight. So I'm going to take the edge by not jamming this 10-2 off. I think he's being a little bit too tight, so I don't want to push really close EV spots. I think they're much more likely to call wide than to push wide, which is cool. Yeah, it seems like he's too tight. But I do think we'll get called just as wide as they're meant to. Maybe even wider. All right, now we got back into a chip leading position. Can I take the rest? Obviously going to shove. His raise folding means that he's almost 100% likely to be a recreational. So we managed to change our note there. I'm going to put a question mark to tight late blinds. So this might be a reason why these games, the chippy V won't change much at all, because at this 100 chip blind level, he's making big mistakes. which is really, really good for our chip EV in these games. Like raise folding at 7 big blinds, just not a good idea. It's just not. So this is for the win. Nice. All right, great. Let's just quickly pull over Holder Manager. So yeah, I just set Holder Manager. To show the chip EV for this game. If you notice at these late blind levels, we got a huge amount of non-showdown value, which is the red line. If you guys aren't used to graphs here, I'm going to try and explain. So this is the amount of chips that I won. So if you win a spin and go, you win 1,000 chips. If you lose a spin and go, you lose 500 chips. The all-in EV shows how much we should win in the long run in terms of chips. And then the showdown winnings, let's get rid of that, are blue and red lines. Blue means how much money we won when we saw a showdown, and red means when we didn't win with showdown. So normally, my graph will look like a green line and an orange line, fairly similar to each other. And then there'll be the red line and the blue line. The blue line is normally, for me, just under the green and orange line, and the red line is normally a tiny bit over 0. That's how I personally play. Some regs have completely different styles and of things. But these late blinds against weaker opponents are going to be awesome for you, because they're just going to be folding too much like that guy was, and this red line is just going to go skyrocketing to the moon even. Anyway, if you've got any questions, please ask me in the comments down below, and we'll be back in the future. I'm going to be doing a few other live plays, or Nick or myself, of the $5 and $10 spins specifically. And then maybe we'll do some 50s, 100s, 250s, 500s as well in the future. But for now, we're focusing on the low stakes spin and goes. And if you guys want to get your hands on our low stakes spin and go course, make sure you hit us up at op.poker.com. This has been Op Poker James. Ciao for now.